Thanks for checking out the I Am More Than podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Wessel, a former Miss Arizona USA, professional model, self-acceptance advocate, hype girl, and founder of More Than Inc. In this podcast, we talk about the things that actually matter, from mental health to health and wellness, body image and confidence, and social issues. We're here to uplift, educate, inspire, and grow together. Each week, we'll feature a unique and incredible woman to share her story of how she's so much more than whatever you may know her as. We'll laugh, cry, and feel inspired in every episode, and trust me, there's no topic off limits. Whether you're commuting, working, or enjoying a glass of wine, we're so honored to have you here, and I'm excited to welcome you to the More Than movement. We're just getting started. This episode is brought to you by Equilibria. Equilibria is a premium CBD company made by women for women. The two founders wanted to share the healing powers of CBD for chronic pain, mental health, stress management, and so much more. My girlfriend introduced me to Equilibria back in 2019 while we were on a modeling job together. I expressed my struggle with anxiety, constant hip and back pain, and frequent headaches and stomach aches. She convinced me to order a signature box with their daily drops, soft gels, and relief cream, and I have never looked back. The coolest part about Equilibria is they have a full-time dosage specialist who works with each customer directly to figure out how to best use their products to improve the quality of your life. They understand that everybody is different. After 3 months of consistent use, I cut my anti-anxiety medication in half, and I've noticed I'm sleeping so much better. Equilibria is backed by science and created with 0 fillers delivered straight to your door. With a wide variety of products, there truly is something for everybody. We've teamed up to offer our listeners 15% off your first order with code MORETHAN. Now let's dive into the episode. What's up, babes? This is the first solo episode of season 3. I feel like it's been months since I've done one of these. And I'll be honest, I wasn't planning on doing a solo episode. I was planning on releasing another interview. And, when I was sitting and editing, I realized that I'm not being genuine with you guys. There's been some things that I've been struggling with behind the scenes that I haven't opened up to this audience about. And I know that when I come on here and I do a completely candid, unfiltered podcast episode, that's when you guys can relate to it the most. So I realized that instead of just pushing inspirational content down your throat right now, I think I just wanted to have a moment to be real with you. So this is a little bit of a vulnerable episode because I am going to let you guys in on something that I've been struggling with. And my hope is that you leave this episode feeling maybe less alone or feeling less critical of yourself. So when I was living in New York, I love listening to inspirational podcasts any chance I got. I wanted to learn something and be entertained while also feeling inspired walking around this dream city. When I was on the subway or when I was in between jobs, I just couldn't get enough of them. And that's what inspired me to launch the More Than podcast to begin with. I knew that I had this huge Rolodex of girlfriends that had the most inspiring stories. And I knew that their stories had the ability to impact women all over the world. The fact that we've released over 40 podcast episodes is incredible. I'm so proud of this community, and I'm so proud of every single story and journey that's been shared on here. And I hope that when you come and listen to the I Am More Than podcast, you realize it's all about inspiration, motivation, and education. The women that we've brought on truly do have the most unbelievable stories. And I want you to feel uplifted and ready to apply the tools that you learn in these episodes into your own life. My favorite part about this job is that every time I get to record these interviews, it fuels me so much to bring the conversation to you because I know it's going to impact you the same way it impacted me. So rewind to May. So just a couple months ago, suddenly I felt like I didn't want to record a podcast episode. I was struggling reaching out to new women to bring their stories onto the show. I was just feeling discouraged overall, discouraged in interview skills, discouraged with topics. I just couldn't get myself to record, which has been my favorite part of this entire job. So I knew that there was something wrong, but I just became frustrated with myself. I'm a perfectionist and an overachiever, if you couldn't tell by now, and I like to be extremely self-aware. So I took this discouragement as laziness. So what did I do? I tried harder, and I tried to create more content. I got stricter with myself. I stared at my computer screen way longer. I tried to come up with new merchandise designs, And then I'd get down on myself when I wasn't producing what I thought was quality content. I thought maybe I just need a change of scenery. After all, we have been at my mom's house in Arizona for the past 14 months. So luckily, my girlfriend had a place in Newport Beach, and she was leaving the country for a month for work. And so Bren and I decided to rent her place for what was supposed to be 2 weeks. My mom's birthday was coming up. Brendan's dad was coming out from the East Coast, and they hadn't seen each other in over a year. So the intention was to have kind of this reunion trip. And once we got there, we decided to just extend and do the full month. It was absolute paradise. I'm so glad we did. But my first feeling when we decided to extend was worry that I was going to get behind in my work. So I tried to really structure my work days. I had all my podcast recording equipment with me. I kept trying to come up with these inspirational captions and posting more. And I still was feeling that creative block, even though I had the change of scenery. So about 2 weeks in, I realized that I hadn't used my podcast equipment once. I wasn't posting on Instagram as frequently, and I still felt stuck. So one morning, me just being mad at myself, I went on a walk to listen to another inspirational podcast, and then I sat on the beach in silence. And that's when it hit me. The feeling that I was feeling wasn't laziness, it was burnout. I'm sure I've experienced burnout in the past without realizing it, but never to this extent. I had so much self-doubt creeping in, a loss of motivation, and to be honest, a little bit of detachment. I didn't want to tell anyone what I was experiencing because I kept telling myself that everyone has their own stuff going on that could be worse than what I'm feeling. Something I've learned through therapy is that minimizing your feelings and comparing circumstances to someone else completely invalidates your experience. It's like comparing apples to oranges. So if no one's told you lately, your feelings are 100% valid. I think I needed to realize that, and I needed to just sit with it for a second. Everyone has experienced so much trauma in this last year. It's hard for any of us to process what we've collectively gone through. And I think subconsciously, we've all been living in a state of fear and anxiety. As you can probably tell, I'm all about getting as much self-help, motivation, and inspiration as possible. But to be honest, I think I just needed a break. I needed a break from quote-unquote bettering myself. A break from listening to inspirational podcasts and just jamming out to some music. I needed to leave my computer screen, shut down my Instagram, and take an overall deep breath. I think we could all use one of those. And after a few days of doing this, I noticed that I started feeling a lot better, started feeling a lot lighter. I stopped comparing myself. I stopped feeling so much self-doubt. And to be honest, I got excited about creating again. And that's when I knew that the tools that I had been implementing for the last month were probably working. I'm not feeling 100%, but I am feeling a lot better. So I do want to talk on how you can kind of cure burnout, or what I've been implementing that's really been helping me. So I think first off, you have to realize if you're experiencing it. Burnout is not a medical diagnosis. And I think a lot of people that have really stressful 9-to-5 jobs are the only ones that have ever really talked about burnout, and it's like job burnout. Whereas I really do think that it affects everybody in a different way. And it's up to each and every one of us to recognize if we're feeling those quote unquote symptoms. Like if you're mentally, physically, emotionally exhausted, if you're not doing the things that you love because you're too exhausted to do them. Like there's so many different signs that I think it's really important to just be self-aware and see if you're experiencing it. And then second, just give yourself permission to feel joy. Permission to do something fun, to laugh, to act silly, to not take yourself too seriously, and to give yourself a break from achieving. Your work will still be there later. Take care of yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically, so when you're feeling refreshed, you can look at your work with a fresh perspective. There's been so much stress in our world, and I think especially with everything starting to reopen, it brings up a lot of anxiety, whether it's social anxiety, anxiety about your health, whatever it is. But I think depending on your level of comfort, it's really important for you to just take a deep breath and do something that can actually make you happy. Go on a trip, hug your friends, dance and sing at the top of your lungs. Stop taking yourself so seriously, like whatever it looks like for you. And third, I think changing up your scenery is so important. I realize that we were really lucky to be able to spend so much time in California, but I think there's other ways to get away. My 21-year-old cousin, who is wise beyond her years, was feeling kind of the same feelings I was, and she decided to take herself on a day trip. She drove for a few hours blasting music, went on a hike, took herself to a coffee shop, journaled, and gave herself just time away from her reality. I think we could all use a day like that. Could look differently for everyone, but I think that if you are just feeling this exhausted, take a second to go treat yourself to whatever self-care looks like for that specific day, for that specific circumstance. And fourth, think about what your hobbies are. What's something that you can do that doesn't feel like work? What's something that allows you to express yourself? Do that and do more of it. Fifth, I think you should do something mindless, whether that's reading, watching trash TV, TikTok, a puzzle, cooking, working out, whatever it is, something that just gives your brain a break. We all need a brain break. I will warn you though, when you're feeling burnout, your confidence can feel like it's under attack. For me, I was feeling so insecure about my work ethic. I was envious of the people that I thought were just doing more than me. And then it got into feeling super self-conscious in my body because I was constantly comparing myself to the girls who I was mindlessly looking at on Instagram. When you're mentally, emotionally, and physically exhausted, just do your best to protect the energy that you do have left. Don't do things that are draining you. Don't surround yourself with people who are draining you. Unfollow or mute people that are making you feel less than. Just really be protective of yourself. And lastly, it's important to give yourself grace. So many of us are experiencing the same thing, even if we aren't all talking about it. I promise you, you aren't alone. If it feels like it's more than you can handle, consider therapy or talking to a trusted friend. It's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay to stay there. I want to continue using this podcast platform to bring the most inspirational women I can to encourage, educate, and inspire you. But I also want you to remember that you're in a safe space here. We're all flawed people talking vulnerably while also celebrating the little wins that we have in our lives. I was chatting with a group of girlfriends who recently just launched their own podcast, and they were feeling discouraged on slow growth because let's face it, building a podcast or a company is not an overnight success. I expressed the roller coaster of emotions I've been on since launching this company, and the struggles and the highs and the lows, and to my surprise, it totally helped them. I realize that we typically see companies and people express their struggles after they've already made it. It's when they're reflecting on what they went through to get to their current place of success. But rarely do people open up about what they're going through while they're going through it. More Than is so much bigger than me, but I realize that while I'm in the process of building, there's bits and pieces that I'm leaving you out of. I decided to launch a new blog under the More Than umbrella called Jay's Journal. On there, I'm going to be talking candidly about what's going on in my life behind the scenes while building this company. Here, I'll talk much more about the struggles of growing, my personal life, answer questions, let you all get to know me in a more unfiltered and unedited way. If that's something you're interested in, I encourage you to check it out on our website. We just launched. Feel free to write in questions or topics you'd love covered on Instagram, partially because I want to make sure that I'm giving you the content that you want to read, but also because that's what keeps me inspired and fueled. I love chatting with you guys, and I love building this community, and I'm so excited to continue growing. But I do think it's important that while you're growing, that you acknowledge the growing pains that we're all experiencing. So if you are also feeling any of the ways that I've expressed, or if you feel like you're going through some burnout, or if you're just a little exhausted, I think it's really important to just be patient with yourself. As we're going into summer and as there's more things, more opportunities, more places that we're going to be able to go, you just remember that it's time to just live life again. I'm not going to get political, whether you want to go all out or if you want to stay more isolated. I totally get and respect whatever you're feeling and where your comfortability is at. But I do think it is important to remember that we are still here and we still get the opportunity to live life. Every day is a fresh start. And I think it's important to just take a deep breath when you get up and realize that you've been given another chance and that you get to really make this life whatever you want. There's a lot of struggles. There's a lot of things that are out of our control. But at the end of the day, it's important to control what you can control. For me, what I could control was realizing what I was actually experiencing and realizing that I'm the only one that could fix how I was feeling. No one else is responsible for your feelings, your emotions, or what you're going through other than you, which I know is a tough reality, but it's an important one. So I hope that you got some value out of this episode. I hope that you just enjoyed this completely unfiltered way of just chatting with you guys. I would love to hear your feedback on our latest Instagram post. Guys, go check out Jay's journal. I think it's something that can bring you just a lot of relatability and comfort, if anything else. And your support really keeps me fueled. So thank you for being here and thank you for listening. And we'll see you next week. If you're loving the I Am More Than podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review. It helps us so much. And if you haven't already, follow us on Insta at More Than Inc. for all things inspo, More Than merch, and soon we'll be posting info about our in-person meetups. We're so thankful to have you part of this community and are always here to remind you that you are so much more than. We'll see you next week.